So hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Donahue. I'm founder of Vero. We go around the world seeking farmer artisans who make wine and olive oil from their own land, and we import them into the U.S., sell them to businesses and consumers across the U.S. Our website is verovinogusto.com. Let me just also let everyone in who's waiting. There we go. So I think everyone's joining on the Zoom. Oh, good. Helen's there. Helen is our collaborator in New England. So hi, everyone. I thank you for joining us. My name is Sheila Donahue. I'm founder of Vero. We go around the world seeking wines and olive oils from small wineries around the world, and we import them in and sell them to businesses and consumers around the U.S. Our website is verovinogusto.com. So again, thanks for joining us. I just ask that you keep yourselves unmuted. And if you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself or just write it in the chat. So I am monitoring the chat, and then we have a colleague, Claire, that's also going to be monitoring the Facebook live stream. So if you're watching from Facebook and have any questions, just write it in, and we'll respond. So today, today's VeroTalk is about a grape that a lot of people don't know about. It's called Schioppettino. One of the things you'll learn is also how to pronounce it, Schioppettino. And we're featuring Hilde Petrussa. Some of you may know Hilde and Francesca from previous VeroTalks. I had a personal sort of a bond with Hilde and Francesca, because when Francesca approached me and said, hey, you know, my mom has a winery in Friuli, and we're not yet in the U.S. And I said, hey, let's organize a road trip to the U.S. And it was Hilde Petrussa's first time in the U.S. Francesca was there in the past. And basically, we were just going around, telling people about the winery, trying their wines, and it was sort of like a Thelma and Louise type of road trip. So in any case, I'm really excited about today's VeroTalk, also because we have with us Mary Beth Vierra, who's a fantastic wine educator. So she's basically going to be running the show. I'm going to be sitting back, monitoring questions, and definitely learning something. So I'll turn it over to you, Mary Beth.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to be able to talk with all of you about such an exciting grape and a great duo of women making such a fabulous grape from a world premiere region for wine in Italy and in the world. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here and joining us. So I'm going to start by giving a little bit of an overview of where we are in the world. And then we'll talk about the Schioppettino grape, and then we're going to get into discussion with Hilde and Francesca and taste the wines. So first, let's see where we are in the world. You could advance the slide, Sheila. So this is I want to just give you a picture. We are in the broader region of northeastern Italy. So you think of the boot, the northeast side, and we are right up against Slovenia. We are just south of Austria, and look at this land. This is what the Prepotto subregion looks like, where Hilde and Francesca are coming to you from. So Hilde Petrussa is in this beautiful area of the world, nice and green, cool. It gets a lot of moisture and a lot of breezes. But let's go to the next slide so we can see a little bit better on a map where we are. Okay, so we're in the region called Friuli Venezia Giulia, and that is one of the many wine regions in Italy in the northeast, up against the Alps and of the border of Slovenia and Austria to the north. So going to the next slide. I think we'll zoom in a little bit.
There.
So if we're looking at a region map, so we're going to come in a little bit closer. Friuli Venezia Giulia has its own subregions. So where are we within Friuli? We are going to, again, the far east, the north, the edge of this wine region, the part that's circled right there. It shares a region, Friuli, it's the Friuli Colli Orientale. Friuli, Colli means hills, Orientale means east. So this region, Friuli Colli Orientale, means the eastern hills of Friuli, is a very premier, prestigious wine growing region within Friuli Venezia Giulia. Okay, the next slide.
Oh, wait, hold on a minute. I have to move on. Hold on a minute. Sorry. There we go.
So
Okay.
just stepping back out again, and we'll zoom back in again. So you can see where Italy is in the world on the left. And again, this is kind of a relief map, the next couple of, so you can kind of see where the mountains are, where the Alps are, where the hills are there in Italy. And so go ahead and we'll zoom in. Next slide.
I just want to make sure people can see the slides, right?
No. No, I'm having trouble.
Can other people see the slides?
Yes.
Are you seeing them?
We can see.
Yes.
I can see them.
Yeah.
I'm on an iPad.
That would be it. iPads are a little bit tricky. You have to swipe with your finger.
I can swipe through all you folks, but I don't see.
And I'm not an expert at the iPad. There's always, I rarely use it on an iPad or iPhone because of that reason. It's always a little tricky.
That's okay. We'll just go on. That's okay. I'll fiddle.
And you can watch the video later too for the visuals.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are in the province of Udine. Again, it shows you, there's a little red square there that shows you where we are. We're north of Gorizia in the Udine province, and look at the line, the brown squiggly line to the right, that is the border over to Slovenia. So look how close we are. One more closer, slightly zoomed in. And this one, the main difference is I'm showing you that we are near a town called Cividale del Friuli. And it is kind of like the village that's the capital of the sub-region of the Friuli Colli Orientale. So where is this? What's in this little square? We're going to Prepotto. So we talked about Italy, Friuli Venezia Giulia. Then the far east is Friuli Colli Orientale, the eastern hills. And now we're going into a sub-region, a cru region that is known for a grape called Schioppettino. It is called Prepotto. And Prepotto is where Vigna Petrussa is located. So let's go one more slide in. And there it is. You see the word Prepotto, see the circle? There's the Azienda Agricola Vigna Petrussa di Hilde Petrussa. So Hilde is here with us today and right next to Prepotto. And what is so exciting about today is that with us, Hilde Petrussa, in addition to being a third generation female winemaker, wine grower from this region, representing the family, making wines, she has also been on the forefront of raising up the knowledge and the recognition of the quality of Schioppettino, the grape and the wine, saving it from obscurity. And she was also the president of the Azienda, or the Association of Vigna, the Association of, tell me, Francesca, the Association of
Schioppettino di Prepotto.
The Schioppettino di Prepotto wine growers. Okay, so this is where we are. Next slide. Got a little tongue-tied there. This is what the Schioppettino grape looks like when it's growing. So it's a nice, a dark blue grape, but we're going to learn that it has a lot of blackberry, black cherry aromatics, but it's going to be a little bit light in the glass. It's not going to be quite that dark. And we're going to come back to this picture later when we talk about how the grape grows. Next slide. So I'm going to give you an introduction to Schioppettino, and then we're going to get right into taking our first sips and meeting Francesca and Hilde. So Schioppettino. So let's, you want to practice? Say schio. Everybody repeat schio.
Schio.
Schio. Pet.
Set.
Okay, schiopet.
Schioppet.
Schiopet. Again.
Schioppet.
Schioppettino.
Schioppettino.
Oh my gosh, Steve, that is beautiful. Okay, so Schioppettino is the name of the grape. It is also known as, it was originally known as the grape, and the wine is known in the Friuli as Ribolla Nera. Some of you may have heard of Ribolla Gialla. This is Ribolla Nera. But interestingly, the name Schioppettino was attached to the wines that were made specifically from Prepotto. So for centuries, going back to the 13th century, it was cultivated in this area of Prepotto, and it was well known as being extra elevated level of quality for the wines, the Ribolla Nera grape making wine from this region. So the name Schioppettino comes from the dialect, the verb scoppiettare, which means to explode or burst or crackle. Keeping this in mind, we always go back, and it's interesting to try to figure out, okay, so how did this name Schioppettino come to be? Well, it's thought that it's related to this word explode or burst. And there's two versions. One is that when the grape is ripe, the skins are still a little bit firm. So when you bite into it, the grape pops or explodes in your mouth. So there are proponents of that's the etymology of the word Schioppettino. But others say, well, you know what? We didn't always have, perfect winemaking, perfect wine growing in centuries past. A lot of times bottles were, the wine was bottled before the fermentation completed or before the malolactic fermentation completed, and some CO2 was trapped in the bottles. So there's a lot of lively acidity in there that would have been trapped. And then come spring, those bottles built up pressure from the CO2 and they burst and, might have hurt some people. So these are two different versions and different proponents. And I understand that Hilde believes kind of the second one, that maybe that's where it came with the exploding bottle. So
Just a question from Steve. Is there any relation between the two Ribollas?
Is there a relation? There is a distant relation there, but some of it comes a little bit more by name, and it's hard to track down exactly. Native, yeah, I've got mine right here too. Look. There we go. Don't leave home without, look how big it is. Okay. And the author of this book, Ian D'Agata, okay, this big tome of native grapes, indigenous grapes to Italy, Ian D'Agata says, this is a noble grape. It may not be known to you. It may not even be known throughout Italy, but it is a noble grape that risked extinction in the 70s in favor of, hey, this is a difficult grape to grow. Maybe we've been growing it here for a long time, but we should be, this is the mayor of Prepotto, establishing that all of the Schioppettino grapes should be ripped out in place of Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and easier growing grapes. And this is where Hilde and her cohorts got involved to save the grape, because it is a noble grape. It is complex, elegant, and it's an aromatic red with a lot of perfume that comes from floral notes. It leads with black fruit, as I mentioned, and it's known for that perfume with spicy pepper, especially green pepper. It's lighter on the palate than you would expect by looking at the grapes. It's got this light elegance to it, very high acid, noticeable tannins that lead to helping you between the tannins and the acid with longevity. So let's get in to our conversations with Francesca and Hilde. So what I want to mention here is we talked about Schioppettino, the grape, but my first question is, I'm going to propose this one to Hilde. And by the way, if it wasn't clear, Francesca is daughter to Hilde. Okay, so Hilde, why do the locals in your region love this grape so much? So much so that they wanted to fight for it to make sure that it wasn't replaced by international grapes. What do they find so special about it? And then, of course, I'd love to know why you find it so special.
Mi traduci, Francesca?
E allora vuole sapere perché quest'uva era così speciale per la gente di Prepotto e perché avete lottato per riportarla in vita e anche che legame hai tu con questo vino e con quest'uva.
Sì, ci sono dei documenti che fanno risalire la coltivazione di questa uva al 1242. Tanto è un'uva, una vite coltivata da tantissimi secoli in questa zona. E questa zona, per il microclima e per il territorio, riesce a dare un carattere unico ed è un vino veramente particolare. Al di fuori della zona di Prepotto non risulta così. Per me è molto particolare perché è un vino che mi ricorda la mia infanzia, è un vino che mio padre lo faceva per gli amici, pertanto io ci ho messo, quando ho iniziato questa attività, ci ho messo veramente tanto entusiasmo per riportare alla luce questo vino che era quasi scomparso. Chi traduce?
Chi traduce? Mary Beth, go ahead, please.
Would you like me to do it? Okay. All right. So she was telling us that this grape has been grown in the region since I believe it was like 1242. Is documentation. So many centuries it's been growing in this region, but not only the broader region, especially around Prepotto. And there's something special about the way this grape has a special character when it's grown in the particular hills and then the high valley and plains of Prepotto in the Prepotto soils, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So there's something about this microclimate that makes it very special. So she and the locals didn't want to lose that history and something that in agriculture and wine made their region special. Then she transitions to what makes it special for her. And a lot of it has to do with, heartfelt memories growing up, her father making the wine, her mother making the wine, and her father really holding, so they grow and they make, as you see in the portfolio, other grapes, other wines from other grapes as well. But this wine was held special to her father, and he would pull it out when special friends were over, and really held it dear to his heart, especially the sweeter versions. And we're going to get to taste that today. And so this is a memory that she holds dear, and she didn't want to lose that. Anything I should add to that, Francesca?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
It's my mom's favorite grape. So for this reason, she tried to explore all the different type of vinification of these grapes and all the characteristic that you can get out of from this wine.
Okay, and that is one of her roles, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. About her role is that she really explored not just making the wine, but exploring the best ways to make the wine, to bring out the character of the grape, to bring out the character of the region, and to make multiple versions of it. So we're going to taste 3 of the 4 versions that we have available in the United States right now from Vero. But I'm going to move on to question number 2 first, so that we can get a lay of the land before we get into the wine styles. We know that wine is made in a vineyard. And Schioppettino offers some unique challenges. So I want to talk about, the 2 of you. Schioppettino can be challenging. And that was another reason why, let's not spend all of our energy in the Prepoto region on Schioppettino, because it's hard to grow. It's hard to be successful with it. So Hilde has worked hard, both in the vineyard and in the winery. It's known as a vigorous grape. So it produces a lot of leaves and it produces a lot of heavy bunches of grapes. So we know that high quality grapes, we want to reduce the bunches, reduce the size to make sure that the plant has the energy to put into the grapes that we want, the remaining grapes. They'll be nice and ripe and full of aromatics. Creates large bunches. It creates compact bunches, which causes some problems with the dampness in the air of the region. It's late ripening, which risks early rains. And it's just a sensitive grape to region and sensitive grape to changes. So what I'd like to do is start with Francesca. Why is Friuli Orientale and especially Prepoto so well suited for the grape Schioppettino? And then I want to ask your mom, Hilde, just a few things that she does in the vineyard to control this sensitive grape to bring it to the fore.
So the main characteristic of the area that helps to have a very high quality of and special Schioppettino di Prepoto is the type of soil that we have, that is called ponca, that is like a rock that breaks under
Gina,
the
can you
rain.
show the ponca slide? I'm sorry, just if you could show that while she's talking about that.
Oh, I got a slide.
Should be the next slide. There it is.
That was not the right one. This is the ponca.
I'm sorry, Francesca. The next two slides have ponca. You can just go back and forth between them.
And the ponca breaks in crumbles under the rain and the sun, releasing a lot of minerality to the soil. And so this is one of the characteristics of the wines of this area. And then we have, it's a quite rainy area as well, but we have strong winds coming from Trieste that dry the water very quickly. But at the same time, we never have very high temperature in the area. In particular, we have difference between day and night, even of 15 degrees. And this helps to keep the intensity of the perfume and the intensity of the flavor in your mouth. So these are the main characteristics. Plus the area where Prepoto is surrounded by these gentle hills that protect the vineyard as well. So this is the typical type of situation that we have here.
Nice. Before I move to re-asking that question of Hilde, I'm going to invite you to, the main tasting is, towards the end or in about 5 minutes, but let's, I should have done this before. We should at least be having a glass in front of us. So if you have the wine with you, we're going to start with the lightest version, which is the Schioppettino. I'm going to introduce it a little bit more in a bit, but this is the unoaked version of the grape. It's not the DOC, it's an IGT. But let's start with that so that you're sipping along with us. Okay. All right. That helps me ask questions better. All right. Question to Hilde. Hilde, what are you doing? What are a couple of things that you are doing in the vineyard to help control the size of the grapes, the sensitivity of the grapes, the abundance of the grapes to make the highest quality wines for your winery, and as you are suggesting to others in your region?
Che tipo di procedure utilizzi per la produzione dello Schioppettino in vigna?
La pianta dello Schioppettino è una pianta molto difficile da coltivare perché è soggetta all'oidio e alla pronospera ed è molto delicata l'uva che produce perché non sopporta il sole e non sopporta l'umidità. Vuoi tradurre una parte o vado avanti?
I'll translate right now. So it's very, so she's starting out this very delicate, and we mentioned it's a very delicate grape. It doesn't like too much sun and it doesn't like too much dampness. So very delicate. Continue.
C'è bisogno di molta cura e di molta attenzione per portarla a una maturazione completa. I grappoli sono molto grossi, noi dobbiamo passare in 3 fasi per il diradamento, per ridurre la quantità di uva che produce da 4 a 5 kg a 1,5 kg per vite.
The grapes are very large, so we have to be really careful of how the grape is slow to ripen. So we really have to watch to make sure that we're getting that grape ripe so that it's not too green. And it makes really big bunches, really heavy bunches. So what the grape wants to do, what the vine wants to do is produce 4 to 5 kilos per vine. But Hilde is working to get the vine to carry only 1.5 kilos.
So sometimes you cut the wings and then you cut the bottom part of the bunches to reduce the size of the bunch itself, not just the quantity of grapes.
Okay, so you're going beyond just thinning grape, as in dropping a whole bunch. You're actually reducing the size of that big bunch.
When the plant is flowering, you start to select the gems and leave just the right amount of gems on the plant. And then you carry on going up and down the vineyard, checking which are the best bunches. And then when the fruits is growing, you try to reduce the size. It's not that you just you pick up the best the bunches, but then you do a selection and you reduce the dimension of each bunch as well.
Great. That's a lot of hand work.
Yeah.
Poi durante l'estate dobbiamo tenerlo molto coperto perché se prende il sole si scotta e il grano si asciuga, e prima quando cambia colore alla fine di settembre, noi dobbiamo passare, a fine di agosto, dobbiamo passare a togliere tutte le foglie per esporre i grappoli al sole. Poi facciamo una raccolta manuale con 3 passaggi per selezionare i grappoli, per fare i diversi vini.
Okay, so it's sensitive. This grape can burn in the sun. So we start out when the sun gets really hot in the middle of the summer is to keep the grapes covered with the leaves so they won't sunburn, because that's going to change the aromatics if the grapes burn. But then as it gets towards the later August, then you go back again and you open up the leaves to make sure that the sun hits the grapes to finish that ripening and to burn off some of the pyrazines and the green notes. So now where she's watching the grapes, they actually now, when it's time to harvest, there's 3 harvests. And so the first pass is in the best years, the driest years, is to pull out the grapes for the Perla Nera. That is the sweet wine we'll talk about. And so the very best grapes go in here, but not every year. Not every year is, maybe every 2-3 years this is made. So that would be the first pass if it's the right year for La Perla Nera. The second pass is for the Riserva, the Schioppettino di Prepotto, the Riserva. It's another high-end important wine. Second pass is to get those grapes. Then the third pass is to get the Schioppettino. But some years it's just not a perfect enough vintage with the right conditions to make those 2. And so the very first harvest would be the Schioppettino and the Schioppettino di Prepotto.
I have a question actually. Is for the wine that you're drinking now, which is we call it the unoaked Schioppettino. It's also
Lighter
called
version.
by Hilde Petrussa as Rinera, so it's taking its name from Ribolla Nera. So it's the first wine that you're drinking. So maybe I'll ask Hilde directly, but the question is, does the grapes for the unoaked Schioppettino get harvested at the same time as the Schioppettino di Prepotto?
Se la vendetta dello Schioppettino e dello Schioppettino di Prepotto sono fatti in contemporanea. Mamma.
Sì, sono fatti in contemporanea, solo lo Schioppettino e il Prepotto vengono selezionate delle uve.
Sì. Cioè vengono fatte magari nello stesso giorno. So the harvest is in 3 times. You know, one day you do the selection for the perla nera. You choose the bunches that they have less berries and they are more open up and they have different size. But while and then you do another selection for the riserva. But for the Schioppettino in stainless steel, so the one that you are drinking now, and the Schioppettino di Prepotto, you do the harvest on the same day, but you just choose different type of bunches, not in at the same time, but on in different days.
Okay. Well,
So
we're
we
gonna
have, just want to interject 2 questions, and then Mary Beth, you can decide when to answer. One is a question about the unoaked Schioppettino, which is why it's not a DOC, it's an IGT. And another question is how were the vines trellised, basically? What's the trellis of the vines, and what are the practices regarding organic farming?
Well, I can start with the first one, the first question, and Francesca or Hilde, you can correct me or add anything to it. The reason that the first wine, the Schioppettino, is an IGT and it's not a Friuli Venezia Giulia DOC wine is because it doesn't meet the DOC rules. So the DOC regulations, in order to be a red wine from Friuli Venezia Giulia DOC, it must have a minimum alcohol and it must have aging in significant aging in wood. So the minimum alcohol is 11%. And the aging is a minimum of 2 years. Is that correct? Looks like I'm reading something wrong here. Aging non-subzones for reserve, a minimum of 2 years. I'm looking for the aging. Oh, here it is. Aging in the aging in the subzones is. I lost my Schioppettino di Prepotto, is a minimum of 46 months for the Reserva, including 12 in barrel. So basically, if you don't, if you make Schioppettino and it doesn't see wood, it sees only stainless steel, it can't get the DOC, so it gets the IGT. It gets a regional name on it.
That's correct.
And then would one of you like to answer about how your vines are trellised? Francesca?
No, Mary Beth, I didn't understand what you asked.
If you can add, the question came in, how are the vines trellised? What is the shape of the vine? How is it?
The vine, I mean, the shape of the plant
yes.
is a single guyot.
That's the answer to the question. Single guyot. Is that pretty much standard across Prepotto?
No, there are a lot of people they use double guyot, but depends how much wine do you want to produce. So when you do a single, you have a smaller production. Okay,
so you're reducing the
and then if you think the plant needs to feed just one arm, not
yes.
more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't remember what the third question was.
About organic farming.
I would love for you to answer this question, Francesca. The question is there or are they organic, or is the question, is there organic in the region?
No, are they organic?
Yeah, we are organic, and we've been registered because now in a lot of country, and it's very important to be organic. We've been registered like 2 years ago. What we do, we don't use chemical products. So our area needs to be balanced, with vineyard, we have the river, we have bushes, we have like forests. There need to be like a mix of natural, not intensive winery. And then we don't use chemical products. We try to use predator insects to remove all the animals that are attacking, the plants. And then we try to leave all, if I move from the picture, as you can see, this is our vineyard, so it's more like a garden. So you leave all the grass under the plants to leave all the all the insects to live in their environment. So we are not bio, but we are organic. And this is something that we always been doing, because we respect the territory, and we try to produce in the correct way, respecting, the place where we are living. We will go probably in the future towards the bioproduction, but it's quite difficult because it's a rainy area. So you have to go very frequently with the natural products, and there is a risk of releasing a lot of metals on the soils, and then these metals, will damage the plant. So we are working on it, but we are not there yet.
Okay, thank you. I did want to ask Hilde, you were I believe, the first president of the Associazione del Produttore di Schioppettino di Propotto. So the first president of this association. You helped establish this association to fight for keeping Schioppettino in the region. Tell us a bit more about your role of bringing Schioppettino back from extinction, back from obscurity, and your fight and success for getting a cru status of Propotto being one of the accepted sub-regions on the DOC label for Schioppettino.
Lo Schioppettino negli anni 90 non aveva una identità, era prodotto e vinificato in diversi modi. Quando io ho iniziato la mia attività, ho raggruppato questo gruppo di produttori, eravamo in 36, per cercare di dare un'identità al vino.
Okay, so in the 90s, there really was no identity for Schioppettino, and everybody made the wine in very different ways. So she gathered 36 other producers together from the region to create this association to figure out how to create some standards of quality to bring more recognition to the wine and quality.
Abbiamo fatto diverse sperimentazioni nelle vinificazioni e abbiamo cercato di ottenere un lievito indigeno per fare lo Schioppettino, un vino più di territorio con i lieviti degli acidi. Ci siamo dati un disciplinare molto restrittivo e nel 2008 abbiamo ottenuto il cru Schioppettino di Propotto.
Okay, the group not only just talked, they actually ran experiments on the best way to grow the grapes and make the wine. And together they created an indigenous yeast that would be a standard that would highlight the yeast that grow in the region. So they pulled that together, and this is the standard yeast. They worked to create a very restrictive disciplinare. So it's the rules, the production and the growing rules to be able to achieve the DOC status with the Di Propotto on the label. And it was 2008 in 2008. Is that when?
Dal 2008.
Okay. 2008 took about 10 years, 11, 12 years of this work. And now Di Propotto, Schioppettino Di Propotto, Friuli Venezia Giulia DOC is something that you see on the label and now being promoted throughout the world. Francesca and Hilde, either one of you, what is some more work that needs to be done? Is there more that needs to be done to raise the raise more knowledge, either throughout Italy or throughout the world? Or are you kind of there and maybe you're going to be trying different styles? What's next? What's next for Schioppettino di Prepotto?
I don't know, ma che cos'è il prossimo passo per lo Schioppettino di Prepotto? I think that everybody, because we are a lot of small producer in the area, and this is, the wines that everybody in the area is attached, we want it is going to become the symbol of our area. That's the Prepotto is going to stand out for this wine. So everybody is sort of working out to make this wine more popular and well known around Italy, because it's not very popular in Italy as well. Just people that have been traveling in the area or they work in the business, they know it. Otherwise, a lot of people, they don't even understand the difference between they don't know the difference between the Schioppettino and the Schioppettino di Prepotto. So this is something that we want to do, to explain and to have other opportunity like this one to present this wine.
And I will say that. No, go ahead.
No, I don't know if my mom wants to add some extra information.
Francesca, sono 140 ettari vitati a Schioppettino, perciò è veramente un vino di nicchia.
See, there are just 140 hectares of Schioppettino, so it's just a very restricted production.
So it's very rare, but it has created people in the United States. Psalms, people that follow Italian wines have noticed and love. It's not so obscure that nobody's heard about it. There is a group of us, yes, that absolutely love Schioppettino and seek it out and know Schioppettino di Prepotto. And now you all will as well, especially once we taste them. So let me give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to taste and the wines. It's not only is, did I not translate this part, or did you? I can't remember. Oh, you did say 140 hectares is it. So it's very, very niche.
Yeah, between all the other, us and all the other wineries.
What we're going to see here is
the question, how many bottles does Hilde Vigna Petrussa produce? Quante bottiglie fatte?
Circa 5.000,
diciamo che io di Schioppettino di Prepotto sì, 5-6 mila. Io produco di Schioppettino circa 80, sono più di 2 ettari, produco 80-90 quintali, perciò si fa subito il conto. 90.
In total, you make
Schioppettino di Prepotto, like 5,000 bottles of Schioppettino di Prepotto, 5,000, 6,000 bottles. And then we have the Riserva, the Schioppettino Rinera, and Perla Nera. Perla Nera is around 2,000 bottiglie. 1,200 or 2,000, depends from the year. And how many of Riserva? Quante?
2.000 bottiglie ho fatto quest'anno.
2,000 of Riserva. E quante di Rinera?
Complessivamente 12.000 bottiglie di Schioppettino con l'uva.
Total like 12,000 bottles of Schioppettino between the 4 types of wines that we produce.
And in total, how many bottles do you make? Because you make also white wines and other red wines and other sweet wines.
40,000 in total. Mm-hmm. Divided in 13 wines, sweet, red, and white.
So yes, we'd be remiss to not remind you that Schioppettino is not the only grape that Vigna Petrussa makes to top quality. So you'll want to explore the whole reason, the whole portfolio. And I did fail to mention, I plan to, if you haven't heard much about Friuli Venezia Giulia and the Colli Orientale area, the whole area is very famous for single varieties and famous for single varieties that are indigenous. So lots of interesting grapes coming out of the entire region. And Vigna Petrussa makes many of them. So you may have heard of Ribolla Gialla, Piccolit, Friulano in the whites. Refosco is a red, Tazzalenghe is a red. So these are all interesting grapes that you can just really geek out just specializing in the whole Friuli region and the Colli Orientale region. So dig in to all of the grapes and the wines. And it really made a name for itself for the white wines at first. So a lot of people knew Friuli as these really refreshing, fresh varietal specific wines with aromatic purity. And that has now translated to these interesting reds as well. So let's move to the wines. Is that okay? All right. So winemaking, as Hilde said, she has been working along with other people in the area to really dig into what is bringing out the best in the grape we talked about in the vineyard, but in the winery as well. Let's create the different styles. And one of the most traditional styles going back centuries, as around Italy, were the sweet wines. So she wanted to make sure to have a sweet wine in there as well. So the 4 wines that Vigna Petrussa and Hilde make, we start with, so I'm just gonna give you a preview and then we'll taste. The Schioppettino we already talked about. This is the IGT that is unoaked stainless steel. So what it is doing is showcasing the grape itself. So that's a really great place to start, not only for your palate, but also to understand the quality of the grape. Then we now go to the Schioppettino di Prepotto, and this is the Friuli Colli Orientale DOC. Okay.
2018, yeah.
And this is the 2018 bottle. And this is where you're going to add the oak, and the native yeasts are used in all of these. So this is fermented in wood for 24 to 30 months. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And in large botti, not in small barrels. So that's not about giving a bunch of oak flavor. So it's in large botti that are used. It's more about getting the micro-oxygenation over this time. And then it's also aged in bottle by DOC requirements. So that's the second one. The one we're not tasting today, but there are like 13 bottles left, I believe, Sheila, is the Schioppettino di Prepotto Riserva. And as we said, that's only made in the very best years. And there you can look at Francesca's holding that one up and has the word Riserva on there. And that is when it's also very hand harvested, and also only in the very best years, years that there's not humidity, the years that it's nice and dry and breezy around harvest time, is Perla Nera. And this is a special sweet wine made in the traditional method of appassimento, 100% Schioppettino appassimento. And just raise your hand if you know what appassimento means. Anybody know what appassimento means? That means with dried grapes. So these, the grapes are picked, harvested, and then put in the frutaio, which is the drying rooms that have a lot of good airflow, for 2 months, a month, 3 or 4 weeks.
Between a month and a month and a half usually.
To dry those grapes before they're pressed, to really increase the sugar and to increase the concentration. So very, very special wine for tradition. The closest to way the wine was made for centuries. So let's get into tasting any of them. Do we want to discuss? Well, we'll start with the Schioppettino, the one that is also being rebranded as Schioppettino Rinera, as Sheila mentioned. It's a play on Ribolla Nera. So this is the new bottle.
The new label, the new label because We were calling Ribolla Nera as well for a period, and then legally it was not possible to call it anymore, so we call Rinera. But then consider that we really want to show the importance of the Schioppettino. We kept the Schioppettino as main name, and we put like a nickname, Rinera. But we always need to explain, as I was saying before, that not many people knows the difference. The one is just stainless steel and is lighter and is easier to drink, and you can chill it out as well. Even if it's a red wine, you can have a little bit cooler in summer. So it's very good for an aperitivo, even in a hot day. So you can have with fish in sauce, like in tomato sauce.
Ooh, that sounds great. What do y'all think of this wine?
Very nice.
Are you noticing on the palate? I mean, I'm really getting the juicy fruit on here that's just full of, you know, bright, beautiful acidity. And on the nose, I get a lot of those blackberries, and I get a lot of like purple flowers. I think this is lovely. It's it's almost a thirst quenching wine, but you still have that feel of the tannins on there. What do you all think? Any comments? Helen or Elaine or Steve or Danielle, anything specific that you want to ask or tell us about what you think about this wine?
È buonissimo.
Grazie.
I would agree on the buonissimo. It's got a really long finish too. Hilde, c'è qualsiasi cosa che lei vuol dire da questo vino?
Secondo me è un vino molto equilibrato, ha i tannini molto morbidi, è molto facile da bere pur avendo un estratto secco importante, e poi c'è questa molecola, il rotundone, che dà questi sentori di spezie, di pepe nero, che è un po' unico, come noi lo chiamiamo, è un vino unico per natura per queste sue caratteristiche. È un vino molto longevo, un vino che si conserva 15-20 anni tranquillamente.
Even this one, anche questo senza le legno.
Sì, anche questo. Sì,
anche quello senza legno.
Okay, so what she's saying is that she finds this wine and what she likes about it is how there's such beautiful balance with all the components here and the soft tannins. And this wine really showcases, because it doesn't have the oak, it doesn't have as much roundness. Because it highlights the grape, it's highlighting the rotundone, or I don't know, in English, do we say rotundone? Or do we say rotundone? I think we probably say rotundone, which this grape is known for. Rotundone is that black pepper to green pepper spice. It is known as the grape with the most rotundone concentration in the world. So you're going to get the most spiciness out of this grape, and this one showcases that, and that's one of the things she loved it. And I should probably back off and say, I can't remember now if I heard it was the absolute most or the one of the like two that have the most. I think it was the absolute most. It says it in there. That's where I read it. Ian Dakaja. Get that book. So that's
one of the most. Is one of the most.
And it says, I think it has 30 to 40 times the amount. The grape carries 30 40 times the amount that you would be able to detect. So it can get up to be, pretty strong. So good. I'm glad that you all enjoyed this great with aperitivi and lighter fare in your lighter dishes, or to just sip while you're cooking dinner.
Mary Beth, I have a question.
Yes, Helen.
So the Schioppettino that is in the IGT, it's grown, and it's everything's the same as the Schioppettino Propoto, except that it doesn't receive oak. Same
Is-
vintage.
are the same vineyard, are the same plants. It's just the type of selection because we are small, we have 8 hectares and we spend a lot of time in the vineyard. And so it's a manual selection done day by day. So it's not that suddenly you decide to do the harvest. It's just walking through the vineyard. You decide when is the right moment to do the harvest for that type of wine. But it's the same plant, it's not a different one.
Everything's the same. Okay.
And
Really
what's
right?
interesting is, Helen, for really across Italy, if you don't meet all of the most important standards of a DOC, you take the IGT. So,
Right.
for example, if they didn't meet, so for Schioppettino di Prepoto, it has to be 12.5% alcohol, even higher than other regions that don't have the sub-region on it. So if they didn't meet that, they'd probably have to call it IGT. But the main thing is they know they're not using the wood aging requirement. So they're happily taking the IGT to be able to showcase that. Great question.
And this is I would say, is easier to drink. So the people, if they want to have like an aperitivo, they go for this wine. While if you want to have a nice meal with meat, you go for the Schioppettino di Prepoto because it has a more consistency and a stronger body. Consider that he's aging 2 years in wood.
So let's pour that one now.
There's a question about the unoaked Schioppettino, if it undergoes malolactic fermentation.
Ooh.
So that might be a question for Hilde.
Sì.
Fermentazione,
Lo dillo tu.
fermentazione malolactica.
Lactica.
Hilde?
Sì.
Translation C, yes.
No, che c'è una domanda che ti chiedono se fa la fermentazione malolactica.
Sì, indubbia, senz'altro.
Yeah, I believe that, yeah.
Cerchiamo sempre di farla in coda alla fermentazione alcolica. E questo Schioppettino di Prepoto ha un'altra caratteristica rispetto allo Schioppettino, alla Rinera, che è fatto completamente in legno. Anche la macerazione viene fatta in pigne di legno. E la differenza poi fra lo Schioppettino di Prepoto e la riserva fa un affinamento in tonneau, mentre lo Schioppettino di Prepoto, come detto prima, in botti grandi.
So if you haven't yet, please move to the Schioppettino di Prepoto. This is the one that is the DOC. It is aged in wood, but it's the one that's aged in the large botti that are very neutral. So there's not a ton of that oak contact, but it's kept there for a minimum of 2 years. Where do I have my my notes?
By regulation should be minimum 1.5 years. And usually then depends from the type of harvest that you had, the type of grape that you have. But usually is minimum 2 years in big wood barrel.
Okay.
And then 1 year in the bottle.
And then when we move to the Riserva, that I don't have a bottle next to me. You can all order it though. There's 13 bottles left from the 2018. Is that it? From the 2018?
No, the Riserva is 15.
15. Okay. That's from the 15, of course.
The Riserva
io non la faccio tutti gli anni, come la perla nera.
Sì, l'ha già detto. No, she was saying, my mom was saying that we don't produce every year a Riserva and Perla Nera, but we just say that before. The Schioppettino Riserva is aging 3 years, so 1 year more usually, in smaller wood barrel that are called tonneau. And so you have more contact with the wood and more intensity. There is is giving like a elegant structure, but more consistent. And in all this wine, there is always the same characteristic, but they are becoming more intense towards, you know, the type of vinification that we are doing. So while the Ranera is fresher and lighter, you still have this fresh perfume of and spiciness. Then it's becoming more complex and articulate and intense as well.
Even when you put the Schioppettino di Propoto up to your nose, now it's a more complex aromatic rather than just the fruit and the spice. The fruit and the spice, and then there's the kind of these sweeter notes. There's this more complexity of a bigger wine, and it's still light on the palate, but it's more concentrated. There's a little bit more
it's
flavor.
Deeper. I would say, I don't know if it's correct, but it's like deeper.
I agree with that. Deeper notes. There is a little bit of a smokiness to it, and then a deeper fruit character.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How is, I'm sure you hear this question all the time, Hilde and Francesca, but how is global warming affecting viticulture? How is it affecting the harvest? How is it affecting Schioppettino? Has it changed, or are you doing things to make it stay the same?
So it's raining less. So from on one side, it's raining less. It's becoming, of course, warmer because there is a global warm, but we still have a very late harvest. At the moment, there are no big difference, but we are noticing that is something that we need to control, and we need to work and learn how to treat the nature, you know, because we are not usually this area is very windy with this cold wind and rainy and gray, you know, it's never very bright summer. Even in summer and in the late afternoon, you tend to wear like a jacket or like a kiwi. Now is becoming, you know, the hot is more intense during the day, but still the temperature is still dropping down during the night. So we still have this difference that is helping us to produce these wines with a lot of intensity on the perfume. But I don't know, in a certain way, we will be probably ready to go biological without struggling so much as we are doing now. So we always try to see the good side of the situation.
And we have a couple of questions. I'll just, two of them are similar. So they'd like to know more about how Hilde decides during certain years to make the Perlanera and the Reserva. How does she go about deciding whether to do that? And does she look at the bricks level, for example? So something more specific. And then the related question is, what about 2021? Has this past harvest, is that considered a good enough one to make the Reserva and Perlanera?
Allora, vogliono sapere da te, mamma, quando scegli che caratteristiche bisogna che l'uva abbia per produrre la riserva e la perla nera, ed inoltre come sarà questo 2021?
Allora, la riserva per la perla nera raccogliamo i grappoli più spargoli, più piccoli.
Sì,
in modo
quando,
che...
Cioè, in che stagioni, cioè che cosa
primi di
devono
ottobre,
avere?
primi di ottobre.
Ma in che anni? Quali anni? Perché?
Io ho fatto il 12, il 15, il 16 e poi il 17, no, il 16, sì, il 16 no, il 15 e il 18, perché se la stagione è piovosa, come succede in Friuli, non riesci a fare né la riserva né la perla nera. L'uva è molto delicata, la buccia dello schioppettino quando è matura. Si deteriora subito, perciò deve essere raccolta nel momento giusto, altrimenti non riesci a fare il vino.
I'll go ahead and translate kind of the nugget of it. So she picked definitely for La Perla Nera, but also for the Reserva. Remember, are we still on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Something happened and I just lost you guys. I can see you now. It's the very best grapes, right? So we already got that down. So what makes it a great year? In 2012, she made it. In 2015, she made both the La Perla Nera and the Reserva. And in 2018, did I say that? 12, 15, and 18. All right. So what qualifies is the area can get quite damp and rainy. The rain's going to arrive early at harvest time. And if they arrive early, you're just waiting and hoping that there's going to be some winds and some, warmth to dry that out before harvest, because the skins are really, really delicate of this grape when it comes to harvest. And so mold can get on it, it can crack, and then mold would get into the grapes. We don't want that. Adding on to that, so it has to be a dry year just for quality. Just for the top quality, we pick the dry years. But even more importantly, because La Perla Nera is made in the apassamento method, we're going to dry those grapes and we're going to leave them sitting out on racks for up to a month and a half. We really have to make sure that it's dry around harvest time, so around October. So damp years would be no years. Nice and warm and crisp and dry years are already going to be the ones that have that potential. Did you want to add anything, Francesca? Did I miss?
No, that's correct. That's correct.
E a proposito delle ultime annate, dal 18 al 21 abbiamo avuto sempre belle annate, stagioni favorevoli, 18, 19, 20 e 21. Perciò in tutti questi anni ho fatto sia la Perla Nera che la Riserva.
So there will be one in 21. Is that the answer? Yeah. So in 2021, another one, another Reserva. It's a vintage year for Schioppettino di Propoto, the very best quality. So have we opened up the Perla Nera? I'm trying it in two different glasses. I'm using it in a little glass and I'm using it in a big glass to see the difference. And I think, okay, does anybody have it there? Because I want to, before I say something, I want to know what your impression is, what you expected versus what you got in the glass. Steve.
First, may I comment? I cheated and opened, opened the Reserva. Hilde, la Riserva ha bisogno di una bistecca fiorentina. È marveloso.
Sì.
It is good.
È vero, vero.
Now, the Schioppettino, in particular, the Reserva, they need to be supported by, like a steak, a roast, and to enjoy it. But I have to say that one day I had with ravioli and truffle, and the combination. The ravioli were not with meat, but we're vegetarian ravioli with some truffle on top, and was amazing. There were the perfume of the truffle and the Schioppettino were exploding, and was not one of my Schioppettino, so was another producer. So I can say that was amazing combination as well.
Nice.
And then Perla Nera is my mom's favorite wine, because my grandfather was producing the Schioppettino in this way, like a sort of sweet wine for special occasion, and mainly was open when friends were coming over or was given as a gift. So she, after creating, all the other ones, she wanted really to create this Schioppettino with dry grapes. Vero mamma? Che l'hai creato perché ti ricordava?
Sì.
Being a sort of a traditional winery, we have a lot of memory and a lot of tradition attached to our love for the vineyard, for the territory, and we follow tradition. We follow, things that have been passed through our generation. That sometimes they don't make sense, but it's just that we are attached to the idea to use the same technique as the grandmother was doing or as the grandfather was doing. We follow the moon cycle. And sometimes they think that we are totally crazy because we are bottling just, you know, now that the world is becoming more dynamic, you know, if you have to do the harvest, to do the bottling, you know, you just do when the business is asking you to do. And we are always there, no, it's raining, no, it's not the right moon. And sometimes the people get, you know, they take fun of us, you know. But this is part of our story. It's always been working like this, is working right. So why do you have to change things that are part of, you know, our family, you know, stories?
Well, it makes us want to come out and visit you and be part of that story.
You're more than welcome.
Actually taste these with you and with your food. And the La Perla Nera, I poured it in 2 different glasses. And so I poured it in a small one thinking, okay, this could be a dessert wine. Then I poured it in a larger glass because this could be just a concentrated wine that has a little bit of residual sugar. And I'm liking it in the big wine glass because this is not a sweet dessert wine. There is some sweetness. It's more about the concentration of flavors. It's more about the mouthfeel. And there's just this more of a slight sweetness that the concentration just concentrates the flavors and the aromatics. And I'm getting it more in this larger glass.
Mary Beth, I tried the 2 glasses also, and I agree. The bigger glass brought it out. Let me ask, what would you recommend pairing this with?
So if you ask to my mom, she will pair, she will have at the end of the meal like a special treat, or with dark chocolate. For my point of view, I prefer with like duck with sweet meat, you know, like wild meat, and or by itself. I don't like with chocolate personally. My mom loves it. So like this Christmas we had with a panettone cover with chocolate, inside chocolate. And I have to say that was good, but you know, you sort of don't appreciate the whole characteristic of the wine if you have with sweet, with something sweet. I prefer with meat or by itself.
I love that idea because one of the things that I discuss, I talk about food and wine pairing, is that the wine can act like a condiment. It can act like a sauce. And what you're saying is we would put a reduced berry sauce, right, with duck, with especially a spicy one. That's one of the ways that we go. So that just sounds like fabulous. Tasting this wine and smelling it, I would love to give that a try. And you talked about pairing with the Schioppettino Rinera, and you talked about go ahead and just remind us between the Schioppettino di Propoto and then the Riserva that's getting a little bit bigger. Just a couple more thoughts on pairing with those 2.
Personally, I like, you know, as I was saying, you know, I was surprised myself when I had, you know, they are always very good with a steak and with a roast, but I would do, I would have the Schioppettino main with like a main course, like a pasta with meat or steak, but the Riserva needs to be paired with simple meat. Otherwise, you don't appreciate all the like with a proper steak that smells just of fire and you know, and meat. You know, not with a lot of condiment like how do you call it? Un brasato. How do you translate brasato?
Well, not braised meats, not stewed and braised meats. Yeah. Like you might use the Propoto with the stewed or braised meats, or actually I think that the Schioppettino Rinera would also be.
Yeah, exactly. But with a simple steak, the Riserva will come out with all this elegance. No, mamma, tu con cosa combineresti la Riserva in particolare rispetto allo Schioppettino di Prepoto?
Schioppettino di Prepoto è un vino leggero, perciò sta bene anche con della carne bianca. Mentre la Riserva ha bisogno di una bistecca, ha bisogno di una carne più strutturata.
So she thinks of the Schioppettino di Propoto, it's pretty light on its feet, and she really likes it with lighter meats and white meats. So between those first two wines, yeah, I think it's great. Anything else that you want to add, Francesca or Hilde or Sheila?
Well, we had a question about the altitude of the winery.
250 meters are the hills, 300 usually. But on the, at the top of the hills, we are on the, on the lower part, on the valley. On the top of the hills, we have the piccoli nella collina di Santo Spirito.
That's what you have at the top of the hills? You said the Piccolitas at the top?
Yeah, the piccoli at the top of the hill. All the others is on the lower part, the hills, in this sort of amphitheater area surrounded by the hills.
One question. Did you know that Schioppettino is actually grown in California?
No, I didn't know.
See, Dry Creek near Healdsburg, Dry Creek, un piccolo.
Dry Creek Vineyard. I'm coming from Healdsburg.
No. In Dry Creek Valley.
Oh, in Dry Creek Valley. Do you know who's making it?
Yes, a guy by the name of Bernie Orsi. Orsi family.
Oh, Orsi. Okay, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been out there.
He grows it. See.
And how is it in comparison with the Italian one?
Like all comparisons between California and Italy, the California guys have much more fruit. The Italy are more woody, different, but each in its own way wonderful.
Okay, no, but it would be very curious for us. Sheila, you should help us to try to find and taste, how is the Schioppettino. No, che diceva mamma, in California c'è un produttore di Schioppettino, and they are not even Italian.
So, no, Orsi, yeah, Italiano.
Yeah, Orsi.
Orsi, he's an Italian producer.
Sì. E anche coltivata Biancolella di Ischia, Dry Creek.
La Malvasia.
No Malvasia, Biancolella.
Bianco d'Istria?
Biancolella di Ischia.
Biancanella, non conosco.
Uva bianca.
Dal sud.
Sì.
Okay, let's read this book, we will need a couple of weeks minimum, to be able to know all the details.
Biancolella di Istria, sì, vicino Capri, quella zona lì.
A Ischia.
Ischia, sì.
Sì.
Pensavamo Istria vicino a noi.
Oh, è diverso.
And do you have any other question? Do you want to know any other curiosity? Sheila, anything that you want to add?
No, I think if anyone else has a question, just feel free to unmute yourself.
Question of Francesca. You're third generation.
Yeah.
As a child, did you know you were going to go into the winery?
No, do you know why? Because my grandfather died when my mother was quite young. So my grandmother was sort of forced to take over, to the winery and to the lands that my grandfather left. She didn't have many choices, and she was on her, 45 years old. And so my auntie, so she has two daughters, my mom and my auntie, that she moved to Rome. So every weekend we were going, because we were not living when I was at the primary and secondary school, we were living in Veneto, like an hour away. So we were traveling every weekend to go and help the grandmother with the business. And so every weekend, I'm the only child. I was spending all my time until I was 18, until I went to the university to help the grandmother with the winery. So at a certain point of my life, I couldn't more of being there, isolated from my friends because it was in the middle of nowhere, as you could see from the pictures. So no, I never thought, but I think that never my mom thought to leave her previous job and get involved 100% and falling in love, because I think at the beginning is like part of your family. You help each other. You know, my grandmother was a widow. She needed help. You were doing without thinking how to improve the company, how to fall in love with the area and with the job. So this happened to my mom, and is up, you know, and was happening to me, because then I went away and I studied as an architect. So it's something that is came back, you know, lately, you know, after I've been practicing as an architect. So I decided to go back to the, you know, who is taking picture? I
did. I took one picture. That was me. Oh my gosh, it's trying to be sneaky.
I heard something, but I didn't see any flash, and no. So if I
What
have,
did your
all
mother
the, be honest,
Sorry,
Sorry?
what did your mother, Senora Hilda, what did she study?
no, she was a elementary teacher, and then suddenly she got fed up, and she decided that she wanted to take over and change something and improve and bring new ideas and new, you know, every generation has something different to say. And then my grandmother was selling the wine just locally or in the region, and then we started to mainly in big bottles, you know, in Damigiane, and then we started to bottle and then getting involved, you know, with getting involved with producing mainly wines that were indigenous, from indigenous grape, and you know, improving every time in a different way and in all different areas, you know, from the type of wine, for the type of vinification, for the type of market that you want to be involved and to sell your wine. So but it was a good fun, because when I was young, as you can imagine, like an Italian family, in particular, when there was the harvest, was a big party. You know, Sheila was asking me what we were doing. All the family were coming around, and we had like pasta all together in big tables, and then the kids were running around the vineyard. It was a very happy moment for the family. But during the winter, going there helping the grandmother, no.
Complimenti alle signore e complimenti per la figlia.
Grazie.
Was a question, do we, will Vero Vino export Vini Petrussa's other wines to the US? And right now, we have all of their wines at the moment. We don't have the Ribolla Gialla, but we have all the other, you know, we brought in some more wines just a couple months ago. So so several of their wines, we have like 2 vintages of, for example, the Schioppettino di Propoto. We have the 2016 and the 2018, and then we'll be importing more probably this summer, because Hilde di solito inizia a imbottigliare in primavera, giusto?
In maggio, sì.
Yeah, so they
In maggio i vini bianchi, in agosto i rossi.
Yeah, we'll probably, frankly, wait for the Riserva, the 2018 Schioppettino Riserva. We'll be we'll be the first ones to be grabbing that.
No, and then I have to say something, because you will see probably in the future that we have new labels. So don't get confused. We are on the way on the transition of changing our image. And so you will see, it's always us, but you will see some differences on some of the labels. Like as I was showing you before, this is the new Schioppettino Rinera, and then we will have I show you just. We will have this is difficult to see, the Schioppettino di Prepotto, and then the Riserva that is going to be labeled like this. These 3 wines are going to be like signature wines, means that they are mainly produced with our rules in the winery. They have the signature of my mom. So don't get scared if you go to Facebook or Instagram and you will see the new labels, but we are just trying to get a new image. So get a fresh air and change after, I don't know, 15 years having the same labels.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sheila, you are live on Facebook. I don't know whether this chat shows up or not. Do you want to say anything to the people that aren't reading the chat about how to get the wines, or?
Yeah, well, Claire has been typing in.
Oh, okay,
the
perfect.
chat. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, but I did mention on the chat that we sell to businesses and consumers across the U.S. That's the model that we developed is for since we focus on small producers that are let's say for the most part unknown before they came into the U.S. market. What we do is we sell to everyone and anyone interested in these wines, whether they're a distributor, a restaurant, a wine store, or a consumer. So consumers can buy directly from our website, verovinogusto.com, and for businesses, we just ask to you can email us info@verovinogusto.com, or just go to our website and type in. You can fill out a form for us to contact you. So.
So what did you, between the wines that you've been tasting, now I have some questions to do. That is my moment to ask questions. Which was your favorite
The
of the
Reserva.
wines that you've been tasting
The
tonight?
Reserva. The
Ah,
Reserva.
the Riserva.
Yeah.
I love it as well. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Depends what I'm eating.
And
It depends on what I'm, the
Ah.
cuisine, the cuisine.
on the meal that you pair. Oh, okay.
I'm woman after my heart. That's kind of the way I am. I'm always thinking about what food it's going to pair with. Yeah. Today, I'm really loving the Schioppettino Rinera. I think I was feeling a little bit thirsty, and so that's just filling that part of me. But really, I can't wait to use La Perla Nera. I'm getting excited about it. So all of them.
I love Chinese food, and I always have perla nera with the Peking duck.
Oh,
Oh,
sounds great. And it would be great with mushu pork too, I would think, because there's something, that's doubling down on the complexity. So we'd see, but it could be really interesting.
The next time that we are going to meet, we can share each other, what we've been pairing this,
Yes.
the different recipe that we've been using to pair.
You know what's a great pairing is the Anok Schioppettino with the pork dumplings that you get at Trader Joe's. It's a really good pairing.
I'd even have those in my refrige.
So shout out to Helen. Helen drove in basically at the tail end of one of the biggest snowstorms in New England. She drove up from Boston to Maine today. So thanks for joining us, Helen and Brendan, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks for
Meet
having
you,
me.
Brendan.
Yeah, very nice to meet you too.
Thanks. Which we're going to go finish our meeting. So I wanted to thank you, Meredith. You did a great job. Mary Beth, I mean, sorry.
Thank
And
you.
it was really nice to see Hilde and Francesca again. I've seen you on a couple of VeroTalks and our meeting last year with the women winemakers. And so thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So thanks, Sheila.
All right, thank you. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.
Ciao.
okay.
See you soon.
for
another
coming.
wine. Bye.
Bye.